we have brought together 3 incredible experts on community and just building great spaces, of course, in the startup space and in the context of VC. So I will be your moderator for this panel. We'll have 60 minutes to have a great, lively debate and discussion with all of our panelists here. So as our panelists turn their video and audio on, I get to introduce you to all of these fabulous humans. So first up, we have Frances Goh, who is the co-founder and head of community at OneRoof. She is based in Melbourne and has been a community leader through the Australian startup space, because OneRoof is a leading network for women in business and leaders and people who just believe in the power of a business to change your life. She's an innovation expert and she's passionate about closing the gender gap in entrepreneurship. And she's also been nominated and a finalist and recognized in multiple awards, including the 2024 Mompreneur Community Award and 40 Under 40 Most Influential Asian Australian Women. Fran, if you had one word just to explain how excited you are about this panel, what would be your one word right now?
Pumped. That was really hot. I had so many words come through, but yeah, super pumped to be here.
Super pumped. I love it. I love it. Well, we'll hear Joel and Gav's word in just a moment, but I need to introduce you to Gav. So Gav is the venture manager at YQ Ventures and is also the general manager at Cast. He is based in Brisbane. He's also been a CCN of our cohort #1. He's like royalty as well. And Gav basically has been at the intersection of technology, sport, arts, startups, business. He's held multiple different community roles at Surreal, Innovation Bay, and Entain as well. But also a fun fact, Gav worked in the music industry for over a decade, and he released records which streamed over 50 million times. Gav, if you had one word to explain how pumped you are for this VC panel, what would it be?
Exhausted for you. I'm so impressed you're still going. Seriously. Oh my God, you're putting words together that I would not be able to after this long. This is
it's fine.
This is a new way to see Paz, and I love that.
No, it's all good. We've got this really fun hat. So we're just on the 24-hour loop. We've just got to roll with it.
Animal.
I love it, Gav. Well, we've also got Joel Connolly here, who is the creative director at Blackbird Ventures. So Joel is based in my favorite town in the whole entire world. I don't know if anyone's going to guess the name of this town, but it's called Orange, real place in Australia. But he is the creative director and runs the brand and comms team at Blackbird Ventures. So Blackbird Ventures is a VC based in Australia that is invested in multiple different startups and scale-ups, including Canva, which is phenomenal. But Gav has been basically involved in Blackbird Ventures to build their brand. He's helped shape their culture and also has been running their Blackbird Sunrise Festival conference in Sydney and New Zealand for multiple years and has been the brains behind that design, but has also worked deeply because he was the previous head of community and worked across basically all the different types of networks and community-minded initiatives that Blackbird has been a part of. And also you founded a craft beer festival called Sydney Craft Beer Week. I mean, I just absolutely love that, Joel. Such a fun fact. But Joel, if you had one word to describe how pumped you are for this, what would you say?
Oh man, I'm gonna dovetail on Gav's, and I'm gonna say the word is energy, because I'm wishing you energy. I'm gonna try and give you as much as I can, because holy hell, I can't believe you've been going for this long and you're still so bright and sparkly.
Oh wow. Oh, wow. We love it. Just as well as a preface, like Beth McIntyre from CMX hosted the first 8 hours. So she was the MC as well. So just also got a hats off to her. And then soon our folks in London, Francisco, he'll be waking up probably about now, and they'll come online in 2 hours and I'll pass the baton to you MC. Yeah. How fun is that? Anyway, we're in the Loop Vortex and we now get to speak about VC community building. So Gav, I just want to jump straight in and just set the scene. Let's just do a bit of framing. We've got people across many different countries in many different industries and many different roles tuning in live. We've got 271 people. To ensure all of us are on the same page, can you just explain like what we do, what's the role that community plays for them, and why would a VC care about community?
For sure. Joel, good to see you still wearing that corn hat. All right, phone mate. I tried to find something common and realized I didn't. So I think the role initially for a VC is very much to return funds, multiples of the investment from their LPs. So when you look at the role community can play, it plays a part across all of it. It really just depends on the structure of the fund, where they are looking to add the most value. It can be across the investor side, it can be across the founder side once they've created their portfolio. And obviously we're seeing a lot of VCs put a lot of time into that deal flow side of things. So the role of community and VC can be a lot if you want to do everything. But I think depending on if you're leading rounds or where you kind of follow on with investments, you've got to just really pick where you can add that value. The hardest part for a VC is you also don't want to add to the noise of all the founders and ask them to do too much. So if they've got 10 VCs sitting on their cap table, they can't really be giving their time to every single VC to do all the community events that they may need to do. So it's really important to, whatever the community side of things is, the founders at the heart of what drive the return for the LPs. So you've got to be really careful not to overload them with things to do.
Can I add to that, Gav?
Jump in.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Of course, my friend.
So if you think about it, venture capital, we raise money. Money is initially the product that you have, but money's undifferentiated. Like my money is the same as your money, same as an Australian super fund's money. So you need to create reasons for founders to take your money over anybody else's money. And so that makes it a competitive thing. So in order to compete with your fellow funds in the market, you need to build something that makes you better than them, or that makes founders want to choose you over them. Community is one of the things you can choose. So you can choose, fits within the whole, it's called platform. VC venture capital platform is the broad name for it, but community is a part of that. And you can do that, like Gav said, in any flavor you like, depending on the problems you're trying to solve, the founders in your portfolio. But like the thing that you've got to do is ask yourself where you can uniquely add some sort of value that's going to make you more appealing to founders than any other fund.
Yeah, because it's a two-way street, right? I mean, founders, one, are hoping that VCs might pick them. VCs also are hoping that founders might pick them. And it's a two-way street. And so, Fran, like, let's add a bit of flavor to this spicy debate. Like, is it necessary for all VCs to build a community?
Juicy question, Paz. I love that, like, Gav, Joel, you and I are all here spilling the tea on what it's like in VC land, but, you know, intersecting with community. How amazing. So, controversial opinion, potentially. I don't think it's a blanket yes for every VC, but riffing off what Joel was saying, I think in today's environment, community is fast becoming that differentiator. You know, capital or money is the commodity here. And founders, as Joel said, can get money from all sorts of different places, all sorts of different VCs. And what they're really choosing, or one of the things that is important for them to consider choosing, is who they want around their table. And community really is about the people there in the community who, in a good community, are really engaged, you know, and have the networks and the people that are going to back up these founders with that community building in the form of, you know, whether that's peer support or introductions or industry influence. It can really help those founders to stand out. So I think community is how VCs can prove that they are long-term partners for founders and not just check writers. So yeah, I don't think every VC needs a giant community machine, or maybe not immediately, because it does take a lot of resources to do it well. So I think it would be wonderful, you know, if it was part of their strategy, but I think they need to be really considered in doing that.
Yeah,
So
I
you're
think
saying
the problem is most don't know what they're doing, and there's not really even, in my experience, tell me if you guys disagree with this, but it's not really a clear consensus on why you would do community or what it is. Like everyone, like when you ask, I think a lot of VCs, and you look at their community programs, they understand it as events and content, which of course is like the fuel. That's what, you know, powers communities and community building. But I really don't think they understand, a lot of them don't understand the actual kind of why you're doing it in the first place. And I totally agree, Fran, like not every VC should be doing community. Just like not every VC should be running a talent platform, you know, or a recruitment platform where they help their founders hire. Like some funds should do that, but other funds maybe shouldn't. And some funds should do community and are really well placed, and others are not. But the problem is they don't, like, not very many people have an understanding of what community is and why you would do it in the first place, I think.
You know, just jumping in there, I think, and this is something we've spoken about a few times before, Paz, is measuring like what makes a community successful is very dependent on each of the VCs. At the end of the day, it's about getting money, and then it's about finding great founders and helping those founders go on to great things. So at the end of the day, the ROI, the thing you should be measuring is if you're returning your funds to the VC, to the LPs, that is your main role. So how do you make sure your activities you're doing can actually facilitate? It's super easy to hire someone in community and community people to get really busy because they're just people who love creating that connection piece. And they can go down, and I've gone down of creating all these things because you think you need to, rather than really finding, going back, Joel said, the reason why you're creating that particular space within the community. And I think that the hardest part is when you get brought in without that clear direction and anything's possible for the community person who's normally someone really creative and has got all these great ideas. And I did some silly stuff first at Innovation Bay where I was like, great, the founders want skipping ropes. They want all this stuff. And I was creating all this stuff because I was like, this would be cool. But really on reflection, I'm like, it was cool, but like it just distracted them from doing what they were going to do. Like it's really understanding the things you need to do and why you need to do it. And sometimes it's hard unless you do have that really, really clear objective from the VC. Like, look, this is where we focus. This is what we want you to go and do. Get creative within this field versus having the entire world to play with.
May I challenge you on that?
Yeah.
Well, not challenge you. I don't think so. The people who run VC funds are investors. And I don't think many investors know what community is and really know what to tell you. They don't know what to say to you when, like you're saying, I need a clear direction, or they need to have an idea of what community is, and then they can tell you that, and then you can go and do it. In my experience, you've got to tell them. Like they don't understand it. They have a basic understanding of community, and they understand community as events that they show up to and like making friends and things like that. But they don't understand all of the stuff that like a community professional might understand about the value you can derive from building communities.
Tagging in. I think what it sounds like we're talking about here is the ROI on community for VCs. And I think we're at a really interesting time where slowly there's getting to be more data and trends around how firms investing in platform, whether that's community, as was mentioned before, talent, post-investment help, that platform play until we, or maybe I should say, as we get better at measuring the correlation between having strong communities with stronger fund multiples, because as Gav was saying, it's all about, the payback of the money on multiples. And so that net IRR across the vintages, as we get more data and evidence to build a case for community having a positive ROI on VCs, then we'll start to see that community isn't just a nice to have, and it's really, really a competitive differentiator.
Oh God, I've got such strong ideas about that. I really want to. We get into that a little. Yeah, tell me what you think.
And no, I was going to say just real quick. And I think the thing is that I was trying to point out is that ROI is what, that like metric to focus on is what gets said. And then you've got to make sure you frame the community stuff around that piece of what the fund's trying to achieve. So obviously we bring in, I think sometimes we get, now there's like customer support for portfolio companies. And really it's kind of like a community manager making sure they've got really targeted support to go and do the things they need to do. So I feel that term does get thrown around a lot, and it has been a million different things. But I think the main thing that is really important for any fund to do from my side is just going, look, we need to find more great founders. We need to support our founders within our portfolio. We need to go and create opportunities to get more investors. Don't use the community word, but how do what you're doing feed into any of those things they're trying to achieve? And that's where the person coming in with the community can go, great, here's strategies to go and support what you're trying to do as a fund.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree partly with some of what you both said, but I also disagree. So
I think
but firstly, well, I'm being slightly contrarian here too, so that we can get something going. But
we love it. We love it.
So the idea that you would that you would think at all about returning the multiples of return in your community work, to me, is outlandish. And because I work in a fund that is taking 10, 12, 15 years to return money. So you are not going to have an idea of success if you're going purely by that until 10 or 15 years down the line. And arguably, it's not your job as a community person to make the founder better at being a founder. You're never going to be able to achieve that. What you might be able to do is connect them with, build a strong community where there's a lot of trust and great relationships, and the founders can make each other better. But the correlation is going to be so challenging for you to show. I think more important, more valuable, or the number one metric that I think is like, it seems so simple to me, but tell me why I'm dumb, is like, would a founder choose your fund over any other fund in large part because of community? Like if you just ask them that, did you take our money? In large part because of the network and the community. Like I felt like I had to be a part, like I could have chosen 2 or 3 funds. I could not be a part of this community. It looks so rad. I can't not be with those people. I can't not be a part of it. Incredibly difficult thing to do because founders want money more than anything else, like significantly more than anything else. But like the multiples on a fund is just a crazy thing because like the success of a founder is so random. Like the randomness at play with succeeding in startups is astronomical. It's a miracle if you succeed. And so trying to attach your work as a community builder to their success is just, or to the fund success, to me just seems like peril. Okay, tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So if you can attract the great founders, that becomes more likely. Or if you can attract the right investors for the LPs that will continue to invest in your fund, that means the life of your fund will be more successful. So I think at the end, depending on where you're focusing as a fund, if it's like we need great LPs to be continually investing in our funds, the best metric there is we've had, so I don't know what I'm doing with this piece of tissue. We've had LPs come back again and again because of what we create. And a lot of the time we know, yes, they want to see a return on investment. They want multiple, but they do also love hanging out with other cool people doing cool things. They love that connection to the founder. They love being, hey, I'm invested in this fund and here's what I get to do. I get to hang with these great people. So I do feel the metric, how we frame it up, if you go, look, you're in charge of the investor community and they constantly come back and invest in all of your funds, that's a big tick for you as a community manager on the LP side. If you go, hey, we're constantly attracting really, really great startups to go into the fund, awesome. As a community manager, you're nailing that. And if you're seeing more of your portfolio coming along to your events that you're running or whatever that looks like, again, tick. All of those things are lining up like you're doing everything to help contribute to that end result in 10, 15. Sorry.
Go, Fran.
No, love that. Love that. So just riffing off of both of you, I think I've got 2 comments. One, it might be semantics, right? In terms of how you define community within that specific organization or VC and what community means for those people. So is it a community of advisors, a community of evangelists, a community that is building together, a community that is sharing, I guess, different deals as well amongst the investors, and how that community then supports the VC on a regular basis to contribute to maybe, is it deal flow or is it, supporting those portfolio companies, or is it like a broader ecosystem strategy? So I wonder if maybe it does come down to the definition before you can measure it or choose to measure it, or you may not, right? Yeah. And then the other thing is just kind of going in the other direction or taking a slight veer with community is we're talking really optimistically about how great community is and why it's a differentiator. I think the reverse can be true, or the other side of the coin might be, what if you don't have a great community? Like, what if you're known for having a less than great community, right? So and I won't spend too long speaking about this, but it would be remiss of me not to mention, women are twice as likely, or anyway, I won't go into the stats. The stats are dire for women. And
go let's hear the stats.
Just it's the percentage going to women globally is decreasing. It's still less than 2.5%. It's less than 0.5% for women of color. And so I think those communities speak amongst each other, share information as well. And I think that there is an educational case that needs to be put forward for investing in women, and how, the research shows that they have faster exits, they have on average higher revenue than their counterparts. And so as we learn more about that and share more about that, or even just have the conversation, in those communities, I think it becomes inclusive, and then that leads to diversity. And we know that, investment diversity is important, not just like of people, but of diversifying our portfolio. So thanks for listening to my TED Talk.
Yeah. Hey, I totally agree with you. Back to your first point, you're completely right. It's down to the objectives and the reason you build community in the first place and what that community is for. You can have a community for founders, for the ecosystem, for your LPs, for like whatever. So you're totally right there. Gav, do you want to take the second part?
I think
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, no, it's as a man, it's really easy to speak on that issue. I think the hardest part that we find is it's a difficult discussion to have, and I know there's I'm not educated enough to even dive into remotely understand the best way to be doing. I think the job as a community is trying to make sure you can have an open space for whoever wants to join, and I think that does come down to at the heart of the type of events you run, where you run them, the type of speakers you have, and again, all that comes from just having a really great network. And as a community manager, and I think Joel, I met Joel through Giants, so there are events out there, and I think it's just making space for them to feel like they are welcoming, and that at the core of no matter what community you're building, your job is to how do you make a space that's welcoming for everyone, no matter where they come from or who they are. And it is hard when you find the majority of the industry is dudes, then it's also really important to understand from my side, it's not the community manager to change the ecosystem. That's an incredibly tall order. All you can do is really focus on your part of that. So whatever that looks like, you don't want to not let people in because they're not who you want to have represented in there, but you want to make it welcoming. It's really, really hard to get that mix right.
I think we can all agree in this that one, you have to sit down and go, okay, what are the business objectives? Like, what are we trying to achieve as a team here and as a company? Two, is community going to be the through way to help achieve that and deliver more impact to the people we serve? And then three, exactly to your point, Fran, how do we define community? What is that? Who is that for? So I think in this great debate that I'm loving, I'm not even needed as a moderator. Honestly, I should probably just go sleep for a little bit, but I'm going to stay because what we really need to flesh out here is one, we can all agree that it is not necessary for every single VC to build a community. We have 273 people here live. I would like to ask all of them what they think on this debate right now. Where are they at? So if you're attending live, please reply in the chat. Are you following on the great debate? Do you think it's necessary for all VCs to build a community? Please throw in some more spicy angles. And whilst people do that, let's break down some different case studies because we've got this awesome question in the Q&A box from George. Bless George. He's following along so hardcore. So George is asking, what are the different case studies? What are the different types? If a VC is yes, I want to build community, what does that look like? And beyond resources, what perks can VCs actually provide in a community context? Joel, do you want to run us through a couple examples? What would that actually look like for a VC to build community? What are the options?
So there's a lot, and it comes down to, I guess, firstly, your objectives and your position in the market and where you think you're uniquely positioned to actually have some sort of impact. So when I started as head of community at Blackbird, it was 2016, there were a lot of really specific problems in the community. What?
No, you've been here for a long time, mate. Look at you going back 2016. I'm fuck.
I'm like an old guy. I wasn't great when I started.
But are you in orange right now, Joel?
Yeah, I am.
Oh my God. I'm so jealous.
So when I started, there were really specific problems, and I'll just give you a couple of examples. One of the first problems was that people didn't want to work in startups. Young people, it was not aspirational coming out of university. No one wanted to work in startups. And I used to go to universities and run sausage sizzles outside engineering departments, trying to convince kids to go take a job at Canva. And in addition to that, being a founder wasn't aspirational for young people. They didn't want to do it. And so we took a stance that actually Nikki and Rick, who founded Blackbird, had been doing this for years beforehand. But their stance was, we need to do some work to develop the community and the ecosystem in Australia. We need to tell stories of our great successes. We need to make Australian founders inspirational to the community. We tell the stories of politicians and actors and musicians and sports people, but no one was talking about Mike Cannon-Brookes and Scott Farquhar back then from Atlassian. So we took this stance, which was okay, we need to go out there and we need to tell these stories. So I used to go to one community that I worked to build was university students, and so I sponsored a bunch of university clubs. I would show up to their events. So I took a bus ride of kids around a few times to different startups to try and convince them to work in Propeller or Safety Culture or Canva. And so that was part of that, was supporting, I guess, creativity in young people, but also showing them that you didn't just have to work in a bank or go and work at McKinsey or whatever. You could actually make and build things yourself. So that was one specific community set of programs, and I guess a stance that we took. Another was like in the community, in the ecosystem, it was more broadly like, how do we get people excited about the idea of making and building things from Australia that the rest of the world want? And so the corner kind of stone of that was a startup festival, which you mentioned at the start, I still run. It's called Sunrise. But in the beginning, Nick and Rick did it on their own. It was in a theater. It was just putting founders on stage to talk. There are others. I won't hog the mic, but there are like, I guess my point in summary is like, you've really got to look at not just like this is like so fundamental for us as professionals, but so many people don't understand this when they're building community. You really have to deeply understand and know what the problems of the community are that need to be solved. People are so focused on their own problems and what they're trying to do and why they would want to build community or whatever and what's in it for them. You've got to understand what the needs of the community are. And so in our case, that was, we acted in those two ways, just to start with, in response to what we thought the gaps were and how we could help people.
Well, even to build on that, Joel, like I remember back in 2020, what a year, that Blackbird also supported existing communities. Like VCs don't just have to build their own, like Blackbird Ventures, I mean, we're biased because our co-founder, Melia Rayner, also works at Blackbird Ventures, but Blackbird was a huge supporter of our community at the Community Collective in the early days. We were using like the Blackbird Ventures Zoom account every month to like connect 80 to 100 people. And, and like that support also stands up different types of networks to flourish over time. And if we didn't use that Zoom account, would we even be here today having this conversation?
Yeah.
Like, who knows? But I'm keen to hear from Gav as well about like what you're seeing in terms of like different ways VCs can build community, like what's working, what's not out there.
And I think, it's, Joel's got an amazing insight that's going to be, stronger than mine in terms of the VC side, because he's kind of in there right now. And I think the hardest part is you see a lot of activity around VCs, but it's really hard to know what's actually working. Like, I don't really want to name.
No
names, but there's a bunch of Slack channels that have a lot of people in there, but they don't get engagement. And you go back and question, is it really worth the amount of effort and money that goes in, how much Slack costs to go and do it? Really, the only people who can know if there's value or not are the people who are behind there going like, where is the deal flow coming from? Are we getting the things we need to? So I think the thing that was really great about Joel's insight was it's so many things. It's whatever you think. And that's where, again, going back to how Joel's point earlier on, it's whatever you as a community manager want that to be. Sometimes coming back with those creative ideas, like going and taking people, like students on a bus. Amazing. Are we doing that stuff now? I don't think that's happening anymore. So just as like the industry moves on and evolves, some of these things would be awesome to bring back. And now my role here is at the University of Queensland, looking after their ventures programs for the students working across when they first come in without an idea, all the way to going through and having an idea that we can give them some support through scholarships and grants to go on to do those things. And I think with the way we approach community is almost like we rely on the clubs and societies now. Like they know students better than we ever will know students. And I think sometimes you think you just need to keep adding to what's already there. But I think the biggest part is, again, like what Joel said, we want to go and find ways to support the university communities now. We don't want to go and start another thing. And even with CAST, what I'm doing now isn't, we're a membership organization, but I don't want to go and organize all the different membership organizations and engage with everyone, because there's already Music Tech UK, Music Tech Poland. Like we want to be more of an umbrella to collect those and add value to them. And I think we've got this, unfortunately, as community managers, we just love to do things. And sometimes we end up doing the things that are adding too much versus like scaling it back and going, what's missing? Where can I fill a gap? How do I collaborate with everyone else around? And that way we've got a way more vibrant community ecosystem, however we want to frame it up. That means we do have a way that we can all work together versus this event's on at the same time. And I know this is what we spoke about, Paz, when you started the Community Collective calendar, is how do we stop having events on the same night in the same city, talking pretty much the same thing? Like we don't want people to pick one over the other. We want people to be able to go to as many as possible. And if we keep doubling up, we're just chewing each other's community or audience out. And we don't want to do that because that doesn't help anyone.
100%. Yeah, we'll put the link in the startup calendar that we created across Australia with StartMate, Overnight Success, Front Cover and Cohort, which has been a resource to go, hey, let's stop all planning events at the exact same time and all kind of serve the same audience, right? Why not collaborate? But Fran, you are going to jump in with some more spicy debates.
Oh, yeah, I just want to chime in and make an observation. I'm not a VC, like OneRoof also is not a VC, but just how great that 10 years ago, Joel was getting kids on a bus from unis, taking them out, and now Gav is in a university, and it is his job, to leverage that community and bring that to life. So I think it's a really cool full circle moment, because, we wouldn't have so many of these types of initiatives in universities. Like there are accelerators now, like led by universities, research departments, commercializing that research. And ventures players, at universities, and recognizing that there is potential there to convert. So I think that was my observation. And then the other thought I had was just around the conversation we had earlier was around whether or not VCs should build community. And maybe sometimes, and we said, not necessarily, but there are other ways that they can still use or implement community as a strategy and leverage those existing communities, depending on perhaps maybe what their mandate is. And I think some VCs do that really well, whether it's like ag tech or climate tech, and having deep connections with those existing communities can serve VCs well as well.
Yeah, and there's obviously so many different models that we can all riff off and share. I mean, I know Airtree obviously have built, Airtree is another VC that is based in Australia, and they have built a pioneers community. They also have Explorers. So Explorers trains people to become new investors. They give 10K if you bring a deal, and they actually co-invest in that deal, and you can get in alongside them. And there are so many different other ways. What's really interesting is Sophia here has posted in the chat asking about, so what about metrics? Like, all well and good if a VC has decided, great, building a community is going to help us achieve our overall business objectives. This is what it's going to look like. If that program has been running for like 6 to 12 months and the initiatives are happening, Sophia is wondering, how do we understand the community's needs and how do we measure impact just past engagement metrics? So if it's not actually just measuring activity in Slack, like what are the metrics they're going to tell us if this community has been successful? Gav, what are you thinking when we talk about metrics and kind of measuring if it's successful or not?
I'm thinking right now, what's Joel's angle going to be?
Joel, you've got to tell us.
And so I think, again, it depends what you're trying to do. So more general in terms of the metrics, if you're talking about an investor community, I do think it's like people returning to invest in funds. Yes, there's an element of performance in there, but like, Joel mentioned, it is 5-6 years before it looks positive, and then 12 to 15 before you actually see a result. So I think early on in the community and that retention of your investors is going to tie back to the job you're doing if you're managing that side. I think when it comes to deal flow, the deal flow side, which is obviously really important, and some worry about and some don't. Some just have a, submit here form, others going scraping and doing a lot of outbound. It really, for me, the biggest thing there is like, is the deal flow increasing, or is the quality of deal flow increasing in terms of we're seeing 100 startups that we're seeing like 20 that we're seeing that are really great, versus before we were seeing 100 and we'd only see 5 that were really great. I think there's some like practical things around what you might see. I'm already seeing Joel wind up. But I think the hardest part is because, like, from my side, coming from being an artist and the music side and being a creative, the metrics also can just be on that vibe piece, which is hard to measure. So I'm kind of sitting on the fence a little bit because I know Joel's probably going to go back to the vibe. Our focus is very much now on like, what are you trying to achieve? What are those things we want to see? Great. How does that effort contribute to what we need to see at the end? Now, please, Joel, I'll hand it to you.
I'm sorry, dude. I need to apologize to you both. Like, I have this terrible habit of like looking visibly like I'm about to jump in and cut your lunch. And I'm really sorry about that. It's a terrible physicality.
We love it, Joel. We love it. It's welcome here.
Okay, apologizes, and then here it goes.
Sorry.
No, I apologize for not giving you the proper space and for like doing this on the edge of my seat. I'm not going to apologize for the ideas that I'm about to share with you though. So firstly, I think like most of this, and I've just had so much of my life like in conversations like this, I think unfortunately most of the things that people measure in VC, in community, are just bullshit. Like, they're wastes of time, and they're poor proxies for what it is you're trying to get to. So a couple of things that you just mentioned there, and I don't say this to pick on you, Gav. I say this because I've actually disagreed with people at Blackbird about this. So I also am not coming here with Blackbird's view. I've gotten into fights with people at Blackbird about this. So my first thing that I'll say is like, attaching community directly to deal flow is a mistake, I think, because when you start to, like, the fundamental position that you're taking when you do that is that you're thinking and caring more about what's in it for you as a fund than what's in it for the people who you're trying to serve through a community. And so what happens though is you end up, if that's your metric, the incentives are very skewed towards you and your fund and are less skewed towards the founder or towards the community members that you're trying to serve. And that changes the programs you build. It changes the way you approach events. If you're running a program like Giants, you start to look for the most investable founders instead of optimizing for building a program that is rich and beautiful and that helps people regardless of whether we end up investing or not. Like, I think you've got to really think about what incentives you're creating when you start to think about what you measure. And I don't think deal flow should be one of the things that you look at a first level. It should be a second or third order effect of what we're talking about. The other thing that I've seen over the years is that you just try so hard to measure things that are quantifiable, right? That are quantitative. And you measure things like NPS, event attendance. You do all these different, what's your blog stats up? What's all this sort of stuff? But the thing that resonates the most with people in funds that I've found is stories. When you're able to tell stories of people who have been impacted by your community work. A single story doesn't feel like it matters that much, but if you're telling stories at a regular enough clip, those stories start to add up, and that starts to build a pattern and a case for the work that you're doing. It's not precise. I don't think it's really easy to show causation when it comes to venture and community building and show causation to the sorts of things that your fund cares about, like returns, like being able to invest in the best founders, yada, yada. Correlation is the best that you're going to get. And the way that you can show correlation is by matching stories with some kind of other sort of survey metric or data. My favorite question, if you're talking about a founder community, was, and I don't think we use this necessarily now, but it was, I chose Blackbird as a partner because the community is so strong. I think anyway, I'll stop there. Sorry.
I love it. Fran, here we go. We need a talking chip.
My name's Fran, go. I get the lot. Okay, so here's me with my rose-colored glasses on. I think there is still a place for VC and community, and I'd like to think that each can play a part to support each other. One example that I've been, I guess, a participant in that sense is the education side of things. So not having previously been a part of a VC, but having an interest in, let's say, for example, closing the gender gap in funding, by way of example, having diverse investors on all sides of the table, more founders and more investors. And so building perhaps a community around that education piece does serve the community, even though, sure, if we're looking at, the hierarchy of needs of a VC being the ROI and looking at the deal flow, I think that if done well and with the right intentions, again, rose-colored glasses, there's an opportunity to build community in a way that does create positive impact. So those are my thoughts around intersection of VC, community, perhaps education could be a positive outcome and lead to, a win for all. I try and find that win-win.
Mm. Is anyone jumping in? What are you thinking, Gav? Are you riffing off anything there?
I'm just tossing up how much we go back and forth on Joel's first point. That's where my head's at.
Go on.
So I think from again, I feel like we're just going to throw this back and forth. It's, I think the thing is from my side, just to note, Blackbird is a very big fund. So I would say when you are a small fund, it's really difficult to have those, let's just do it for the ecosystem vibe. You only have, management fees of 2% plus some payoff at another point. So if you've only raised a $10 million fund, you ain't getting time to be really fluffy around, hey, let's go and do this thing. Let's tell these stories that don't return thing. I think we've also got to talk about later stage funds that have the ability to have more of this culture contribution to the ecosystem building piece. Then you've got these other funds who really do need to be focused on those metrics because they can't get there and run all these community pieces and do the stuff that's for the general vibe of the ecosystem. So for ventures, for example, is if we don't tell amazing stories of founders going and building great products and potentially seeing the valuation rise, we don't get scholarship donations, bursaries, endowments from our alumni. They just go, yeah, cool, the university pays you to deliver the programs, great work, awesome, you're doing stuff for the community. But that doesn't get them excited to come and give us money to help those students go on to bigger and better things. So I think there's also two different discussions. There's this other side, which is when you get to a certain size of VC, you have this cultural importance around what you can do and how you can shape the future of Australia. Really, like the size of Blackbird, you are shaping it with the investments you're making across Canberra and safety culture. But when you're grinding it out on a $10 million fund, it can't be that. If you've got a community role and there's a few that have popped up around those really early, you're probably doing it part-time. It really does need to be, I need to see awesome deal flow. I need to see these returns invested. If I don't get that, I'm not getting this next capital to go into the LP.
So I agree with you. I guess like I'll extend my answer a little bit by saying that if you build beautiful, great programs and you build a really great VC, you will get the deal flow. Like that's the primacy is up there. It's measuring. The first thing that you measure and should be concerned about is how friggin' hi.
Oh, what?
Hello.
Can I do that?
Happy to have that. Yay. I hear you saying, I actually agree with you, I think, and you're definitely right in pointing out that I have our fund is very different to yours, and two smaller funds. So there are differences, of course. But I guess what I'm trying to advocate for is if you build the best stuff, the best community programs, then a natural impact of that will be second and third order effects is great deal flow, best reputation with founders, LPs that are happy because you're winning the best founders. But to me, like those things are second and third. So yeah, I guess like thinking about it, like maybe there's some universe where you sort of do kind of pay attention to deal flow, but it shouldn't drive your community building programs at first, because I think the best programs will win you the best founders if you know what you're doing. That could be wrong. Again, I'm coming from a privileged, high up stacked Blackbird's fund is huge. Like I sit on top of that. So, my view is tainted through that.
Context, and I'm loving the context and the vibes that are going into the chat. We've got from Julian here: VC plus education plus community equals danger. Julian, we'll have to have you elaborate. But we've got a segment here where we now get to go into audience Q&A even more. So attendees, if you want to add some fuel to this fiery debate on how VCs build community, please open up the Q&A box and watch Gav not be able to do the love hearts on screen, and only
How's
Joel can.
popping those things off? It's coming out from the middle.
It's his
of
AI
the love
agent.
hearts.
I know.
It's
It's amazing.
White background. There you go.
Jeez.
Well, as we all work out how to use our AI agents creating love hearts, anyone here can post a chat in the Q&A. We actually have a question here from Sasmini. And so we're actually going to get Sasmini here up on stage to ask her question all about mistakes. So Sasmini, do you want to share what your question is and then pick one person, either Joel, Fran, or Gav, to answer first? Tell us.
Okay. I hope this doesn't ignite any kind of spicy debate and everyone can, but just like the public chat says, like this is such a spicy debate that we really love witnessing. But my question is about mistakes and more like a learning opportunity for all of us here. What are the biggest mistakes you see VCs make when they first attempt to build community? Like what should firms absolutely avoid doing? And I think I'll pick Fran first.
Amazing.
So that Gav and Joel can. Thanks.
Great question, Sesame. Thank you. I knew you were going to pick me. I was like, oh, where's she going to go? Okay, mistakes. There are many. Top mistakes, I think, probably is paying lip service to community, treating community more like a PR strategy or a marketing campaign. I think a lot of people can spot those performative gestures, hopefully a mile away, and just using that as a carrot and not really executing on it or doing anything that's actually community related or to create that community vibe. And then I think the other end of the spectrum is maybe overloading founders with too many events or initiatives that can lead to fatigue or distraction. So again, I think it is coming back to what is the community strategy, what is the approach, and what is the aim of it. And yeah, having that depth of community and real, do you know what, like going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think Joel might have said it's what the understanding of community is. And I think that the mistake is VCs just thinking they can do it without really investing in the knowledge. Yeah, that's my hot take.
Love the hot take, Sasmini. Who do you want to answer next? You're going to put them in the hot seat.
I'll go with Gab and then Joel.
Joel's actually sitting quite calmly, so I felt like that was going to come to me.
My legs are kicking under the desk.
I think
trying really hard.
I think the thing from, if I reflect on my own kind of, and also to shout out, like I got into community because of Joel through Giants in Innovation Bay. So we've had many discussions. Thank you for it. I think the biggest thing I made him hit me with it. Go. I think the biggest mistake I personally made was jumping in without just being thoughtful to start with. You realize, like, I came with energy, like when you, as a founder doing your own thing, where I came from into community, I was like, let's just go, we'll figure it out as we go. There's a part when you start to ask for other people's time and effort away from what they're building, you should need to be really thoughtful about. So if you come in and all guns blazing, you pull up this huge calendar of events and the founders are like, oh my God, like this is too much. Just take a beat. I think one thing with community, when you go into VCs, and a lot of the time you're dealing with startups who would maybe taking money the first time, or been around and taken multiple rounds, they're so busy doing what they need to be doing. So just be thoughtful and make sure you're being really empathetic to their journey and the things they're trying to achieve. I think, there's so many things you can cover as a founder now, and there's so many places you can get the information. Like, what can you give that isn't somewhere else? If you're doing a panel that someone else can go and search and find in a podcast or on YouTube or whatever, that's with really great people that you could probably never get to have a chat. Why are you doing that content? So I think, trying to match this bit around, how do you provide links so all the founders who are really busy don't have to go find everything? You can be like, here's something that already exists. Take a listen if you want. Like, don't just create events just to do events. There's other ways you can provide a huge amount of value just to kind of curate from your taste what you think is important to them after you know what is important to them. So the biggest mistake I find is jumping in all guns blazing, so excited about the role. Creative community people are so creative. They just come in with all these ideas. It's just like being really thoughtful and having empathy for the founder, I think, on that side is very important.
And, Julie Trell has has posted in the chat saying that yes to not overloading founders with like too many of the same events. Like, do founders really need another Slack channel and an event and a peer group and accountability buddy and the badge and the program? Like, is that actually what's helping, or is that, just something that we've prescribed as useful in that sense? But Sasmini, is it time to hear Joel's perspective? You're the moderator now. Joel.
I'm so embarrassed. Look at the reputation I've made for myself. It's really simple. It's like that. It's like this is quite common. Like, what VCs get wrong and other people building communities get wrong is that they go in with a really strong understanding of why they want a community or why they think they want one, and very little understanding of why the community needs a community, like what they would want to get out of it. They know what they want, which is like deal flow, or I want to network with the right people, or I want to like whatever, but they don't understand why someone might want to participate in or join a community to begin with. And I think that's like, then you end up building for yourself. You don't end up building for the community, which is cardinal sin number one.
I love that quote. You end up building for yourself and not for your community. Oh, mic drop. I'm not going to actually drop my mic because it'll take me at least an hour to set it up again on this live stream that's very delicate. Stephanie Stein, Joel, you ready? What the hell? Balloons? What is happening? Is this the Bevy platform? It must be. Whoa, fireworks. Gang, this is Loop at like hour 15.5 thousand miles into that galaxy now.
How has Joel got all the things? Like, stop giving him things.
That's okay. Don't worry. I'll give you admin rights, Gav, and you can run the rest of Loop.
I've hosted a lot of webinars in my time.
We love it.
Getting nothing.
Well, Sasmini, thank you so much for your question. We really appreciate that, for adding all of the different types of mistakes and things that we should avoid. Now, we should avoid going over time because our next speaker is coming in hot very soon. And we have a couple extra questions here for our panelists before we wrap. But of course, I mean, I accidentally just got rid of Joel instead of Sasmini. Here we go. Let's change. Boom. There we go. So sorry. I just booted you from the panel. We're back. So we're back with the second last question. We've got 5 here in the chat. Let's pick one here. Okay, so we've got a question here from Enos, which says, as Fran has mentioned, women are still underrepresented in venture capital. What barriers exist and how can community spaces help break them down? Would love to hear your thoughts, Fran. Beautiful question, Enos. Thank you for tuning in all the way from France. How great.
Well, thanks, Niz. Nice to see you. Big question. Big question. I wish we had more time for this.
We do. We've got at least 10 hours left of loop.
I would actually really love to hear, Gav and Joel's takes as well, because I think, allyship in this area is everything, and men have such an important place and role to play as well. All genders do, really, in moving the needle. So barriers, gosh, I think that's why community can be a great solution, because a lot of the time the barriers are in the networks, those introductions that are made, after hours or behind closed doors or in certain, clubs, for example, that can happen. And so I think that's why community and being open and inviting can play a role. I think that there are a lot of structural things that exist as well, a lot of unconscious bias as well. So I'm kind of just giving like the top headlines because we don't really delve into it. But again, I have this perspective because I am an advocate of women founders, but I'm not within a VC. And I know the complexity that there is in this world. So I think it's not such a simple throwaway thing just to say, here are the stats, and it's so easy to just change the game. I know it's a lot more interesting and complex and layered than that. But Gav and Joel, would love to hear your perspective.
I think the interesting insight that I can give is what's happening like in places like universities, where we're kind of the first place that we're seeing a lot of people who are interested in innovation entrepreneurship. And I think the hardest part is more broadly, and I don't want to say like I know everything. I know it's a sensitive issue and there's a lot of things to work through. So this is just my perspective of where I sit here in Queensland and the things I see. So the hardest part is really know who's ultimately responsible to change what is going on. It's really hard. It's easy to sit and say VC should just be investing in more women founders, and that's the answer. I think that kind of is like, what we find when we go, how do we treat someone who's eaten badly? And we like, oh, we'll just, they're diabetic now, we'll just give them something to fix that. We've got to go back and think about like why it's happened. And that happens a lot earlier. And if I can talk about what's happening in our programs, we just don't see the amount of women coming in. We run female programs, Lead Hers. We run literally program, Empower, Pre-Accelerator for women founders. We just don't see the amount of interest from females coming into our programs. So yes, there's work to do. There's all those things, but ultimately, are we responsible as a university to be changing the trajectory of like what women choose to do? This is a hard bit around who ultimately takes responsibility. We are trying things, but we can only try things to see and try and make an outcome. But the reality is, if you look at the cohorts of students, we give scholarships and all those things too, because we have to remove all of those things and just, we have no gender attached to those things, anything. It's literally a completely blind decision from the judging panel. We do see that more men receive those, not because of anything else, rather than like, could be the way they're talking about it. There's all these different parts that we know we need to do more work on, but it is a very difficult issue. We try things, but we know they don't all work, and we definitely haven't nailed it, but we do have programs. It's just, we're not seeing the keenness to jump in. And our chief student entrepreneurs, Yara, who went through Small Bet, Startmate, Giant, she's an incredible founder and she's going to go on to do amazing things. But Yara's very special, and there's not a bunch of Yaras around that we're seeing at the moment. That's all.
Yet.
Appreciate yet. Great. Yeah. Love that. Joel, what would you add? Joel's on mute, so we can't actually hear anything he's saying, but he's telling us this joke. They're all going to laugh.
I should have been muted the whole time. No, like Fran, you're totally 100,000% right. It's a massive problem. We think about this all the time. We try so hard. So there's two things to it. One problem we're more focused on, but the other one we care about equally as much. So the problem is like women in VC itself, like women on the investment team making investments. And then the other is women starting founders who can starting companies who get investment from VCs. So I'll say like we've got a person whose full-time job it is to try and figure this out. We publish what we're trying to do every single quarter. as well as our results, and how successful we were compared to the last quarter. We're making gains, we're getting better, but we're still short of our targets. I think Gav's point is true. The reasons are structural, they're cultural, they go back many, many years, but I still think that doesn't matter. Like, we're obligated, especially Blackbird as the biggest fund with the largest amount of money, with the biggest amount of, arguably the largest amount of sway in the community. We're responsible for holding ourselves accountable and doing everything we can to have a more balanced fund to invest in more women. One thing I'll say is that we care more about mixed teams than we do about single, either just female teams or just male teams, for obvious reasons. Like, we're trying to build a diverse fund, and we found that diverse teams perform better. All kinds of genders in a founding team are better than any single gender. So that's what we look for, and we try really hard to do. We run a lot of front-facing programs and initiatives that happen right directly around us. So that can be, we have a ton of events that are just focused on women. We have a whole program called Building a More Balanced Fund, which my colleague Kate Glazebrook runs. And there's a lot of content, there's a lot of programming, a lot of advocacy around that. Then we also have other programs like Startmate has for years been running the Female Fellowship, which is 100 women at a time. You come into this program, we try and get them all jobs in startups. So there's this groundwork that we're doing that we're pushing really hard on. But honestly, we're still it's still really hard and we're not succeeding. And we don't honestly know why, but all we do know is that we've got to keep trying and keep pushing harder. And that's, what people on my team are doing. It's what we're, focused on. One interesting thing as well, a lot of people are like, oh, more women in funds investing would mean more female founders. But the men in our fund that we found, the male investors, invest more in women than they do. Not more in women, but their rate of investment, I believe, in women is higher than women in women. So we don't totally, we definitely want more female investors, more women investors on our team, and we're constantly looking and trying for. But what I'm trying to, I guess, explain is that it's much more nuanced and complicated than maybe you might imagine. But we remain committed and trying super hard, and we're doing better, but we want to be doing even better.
Yeah, it's not a new conversation, right? These are systematic challenges. It's been around for a substantially long time, but it's a conversation that we need to keep having and keep addressing. And so I appreciate all of you sharing different perspectives on that, especially as we only have 2 minutes to go. And my dog here is nagging me to go for a walk. Bless. But gang, we have to wrap this panel, and I would totally just keep you on here for the next 10 hours of loop. But we have at least 12 other speakers waiting in line, ready to roll, to share their knowledge with the 274 people here live and 19 people that registered, which is crazy. So what I would like to do is, one, thank Fran, Gav, Joel for being here. I want everyone in the chat to post your favorite emoji saying thank you with your one takeaway of how Joel blew your mind, Frances raised your eyebrows, and Gav made you laugh. But we are going to wrap just with one final question, which is what is the future? What is the future? What are we going to see more of in terms of VCs building community? What trends are just going to be steered more frequently? And so I just want to hit one or two sentences, real quick rapid fire, because we've got to move this on very soon. So Gav, Fran, Joel, share, wrap, go.
Collaboration. I think more collaborating is going to be happening as we start to get more and more focused on where we're really good at, each individual funds and the community as a whole.
Boom. Fran.
I'm thinking intersectionality would be really cool as the landscape in Australia matures more. We might see some really interesting niches and therefore communities happen.
I think consolidation and resetting. I think there's been a lot of people running community programs throwing stuff at the wall for years. And I think people are getting to this point, it's kind of this point again where people are going to start questioning what's working, what's not. And that's going to force a bit of a reset. I don't know what that looks like, but I think within that, there'll be a lot of opportunity for professional community builders.
I would add to that and just say refinement. More and more, I'm seeing a lot more VCs and people, investment analysts and people just working in that type of environment come to us and ask us, like, what is the value of community building in this context? Am I doing this correctly? Like, this is what we're currently doing. So that element of like benchmarking and actually measuring what's actually converting for both the founders and the funds, and more fun, right? Like, that's what life is about. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I am so glad that you all stopped by in the middle of this 24-hour loop, which is crazy and fun all at the same time. So Fran, Gav, Joel, thank you all so much.
Fran, Joel, that was fun. Let's do it again.
Love you. Sorry for being a loud jerk.
We're coming there at your house, Joel. Let's do it over a few drinks.
Yeah.
Live stream.
Already decided that we're all going to buy flights to Sydney, and we're going to have lunch at Canva head office with the 4 of us. And then we're going to go visit Joel in orange, and I'm going to give you all orange outfits because I've got at least 5 more that I can wear.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh, well, thanks gang. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
But